In the 5th episode here, the show does get back on track a bit as the focus is primarily on Sauron and Celebrimbor and the dwarves for the most part. The writers have shown us a bit of mercy here. The story beats involving Isildur and the Harfoots have been sidelined this week.
I thank God for that. I'm grateful for that.
As per usual, there will be spoilers. The episode begins with King Durin claiming his Ring of Power and immediately gets to work on the mountain, trying to bring back sunlight into the halls. We see right away that the ring's influence on him is strong, as it's guiding him to dig in dangerous areas. But hey, he does find the sunlight, and who can argue with proven results? King Durin then goes on to tell the other dwarf lords that they can claim their rings as well, but for a price. Speaking of price, the king recently put a new tax on his kingdom, and he calls it ring tribute. Disa and Prince Durin haggle with a local merchant about said tax while they are trying to purchase a tuning crystal. And of course, Disa immediately drops the crystal and it goes rolling off into the darkness. When she finds it near a small body of water, we hear a beast growling, and we can see that there's something beneath the surface of the water. So what are we thinking that is? Is it the Balrog, or is it that big-ass octopus thing that's outside of Moria? I'm not really sure, but hopefully we'll find out soon. Prince Durin eventually confronts his father about their very greedy digging techniques and the ancient evil beast that Disa discovered. But the king deflects all of that and just completely flips the script on his son, telling him how he's so proud of him, and he even gives him back his princely necklace thingy. Now, I liked seeing the indirect kind of residual effects of the ring. The prince is not under the influence of it, but when he was trying to argue his point, King Durin, or the ring I should say, tells him everything that he's been wanting to hear, and therefore putting him in a spot where he just kind of gives up on the debate. So he goes back to Disa, and he really can't say anything other than he tried. Seeing the ring's influence on the elves and the dwarves is easily the most, or maybe even the only part of the show that's enjoyable, to me. Everything else just feels like baggage or dead weight. Like out in Numenor, where it looks like Pharazôn has indeed become king. He quickly begins breaking down and dismantling the Sea Guard. Meanwhile, Queen Muriel tells Elendil that he is not to oppose this new regime. She believes that the fate of Numenor may have been changed because Elendil did not see the destruction of Numenor when he touched the Palantir. He kind of begrudgingly agrees, because this changing of the guard has already put a massive rift between him and his daughter. A bit later, all hell breaks loose down in the sanctuary between Pharazôn's crew and Elendil's. It's down here that we get our first real meaningful death of the series. Unless you include the Harfoot's tribe leader from the first season. Which I don't. Anyway, after being ordered to stand down by Elendil, Valandil is stabbed in the back by Pharazôn's son. Adding insult to injury, Elendil is going to be blamed for the fight too. Over in Eregion, the elves and the dwarves are celebrating their success with the rings. This scene had one of the better callbacks to the movies, in my opinion. In the first season, we were shown how Celebrimbor was kind of incorporating Mithril into some other creations. And now we get to see the pinnacle of that with the Doors of Durin. It brought back fond memories of Gandalf threatening to smash Pippin's head against them.
Fool of a took.
Kelly and Ron have another little argument about making rings for men, and Kelly isn't budging. So Ron says, fine, I'll do it myself. Prince Durin shows up at one point and asks the Elf Lord if there was anything different with the dwarf rings, because his father has been acting a bit strange. Kelly assures Durin that the rings should be perfect, but we can see that he's beginning to wonder a bit himself. So when he asks Ron if the dwarf rings have been tampered with, he simply tells him, well, they were created under a cloak of deception. You kinda lied to your king, buddy. Later on, Myrdania is attempting to resize one of these experimental rings, and she goes all invisible, like we've seen numerous times in the movies. After Celebrimbor gets the ring off her finger, she goes into some detail about what she saw. Something tall with skin made of flames. Sounds like our guy. Then, following some more subtle manipulation from Ron, Kelly finally agrees to help forge the rings for men. Knowing that the dwarf rings may be tainted, he demands from his smiths that the new rings are nothing less than perfection. We can see, though, that Kelly is not exactly at ease with forging these new rings. He's clearly conflicted, which we can be sure is exactly what Sauron wants. In the closing moments of the episode, the orcs have arrived at the doorstep of Eregion. They have Galadriel the Insufferable with them, and Adar proposes an alliance to her. The enemy of my enemy kind of thing. I would imagine that shit's going to hit the fan in the next episode. But one thing I want to call out here, what took the orcs so long to get to Eregion? It took them like 3 whole episodes to make that trip, while Prince Durin went there and back home at least twice in the same time frame. It's not a huge deal, just thought it was worth mentioning. Perhaps I'm just grossly underestimating the sheer speed of the dwarves.
I'm wasted on cross-country! We dwarves are natural sprinters!